Okay, so done with the installer. We added the SQL features to that in the modify of the Visual Studio. That's not in the video. Now we're going to start Visual Studio, and I can close that. And I got these other windows behind me. We're going to clean that up, and I'll clean this window up. Okay, so I'm starting a new Visual Studio app now. Create new project. Because I have the Windows framework, in order to talk to databases, I need to come way down here, Windows Format.net framework, and then next. And that next button, oh, I can barely see the next button right there. And click, there we go. I'm going to call it WinFormat .NET Framework Manning Database. And the next button. Okay, so now I have my format. Let's give the form a better name than Form 1. I'm going to call it Database Exploration. And that'll be my title on my form. Now comes the part where I get that connection to the database. But I need to go get my database. So I'm going to go log into Schoology and find that set of data files. I'm going to log in as JSmart. And down in here, I've given you the link. The link is in your resources as well, but I put it in the assignment too. So I go down to the assignment, and assignment chapter 10, database I/O. Basically, this project, because databases are a little more complex, I'm not asking you to do anything except follow the tutorial in the chapter of connecting to a database, and then we'll build on that. Sample code for this chapter. Chapter 10 is the chapter we're in. I click on chapter 10. And really all I need is this file here called company.mdf. So that's the file I want to download. Right click, download. Come on. Right click. Where's my download? Oh, there, download here. Download. And I'm going to place it. Oh, what? It can't download the file? What? Do I have some crazy software running on my PC? That's not letting me download that file. What's it saying? Can't download file. Learn more. It's not explaining why it didn't let me download. Is it letting you download the file?
Yeah.
It's not giving me any help on why. Let me try dragging it to my desktop. Company.mdf. Okay, let me go up a level. I know I have my chapter 10 files in a zipped folder, I think. I'll just download that whole zip folder. Let me go up a level. One more level. And my Google Drive. My drive is giving me problems. Let's try downloading the whole of chapter 10. Maybe it's because I'm using Firefox. That might explain it. All right, let me go up. Let me go in Chrome and go get that same file. I think Firefox is giving me troubles. Let me go back to my assignment. Okay, here I am on it in Chrome. Let's go to the sample code. And I'm just going to go down to this chapter. Let's see if I can download that again. Right click. There, download. And he's happy. Okay, good. And I go to my Where should I keep them over here? The new volume D. There we go. And cs151. And there's my VB project. And where is my? There it is, down in there. I'm going to save that file right there in the same level as my project. And company.mdf. And the save button is hiding up for me, of course. There, save. So company.mdf is being saved. Now, .mdf is a special kind of database file that is just think of it as a local database file. Okay, now back to Studio. And now I'm ready. Now that I know where that file is, I stored it in the same folder. Now I'm going to come over here to my, not a common control, but a data control in my IDE. And I'm going to bring over a data grid view. Data grid views allow you to display data that, and it doesn't say it comes from a database here, but we're going to display the data from our database in a data grid view. So I'm going to click that and drag it over here. And what? Let's try that again. There. I don't know why that first one didn't work. There's the data grid view. I'm going to stretch it across my page. Eventually we can have it stretch with our window. Here's the important thing about this data grid view. This little teeny weeny arrow right up here is what I'm going to use to connect my data grid view to the data to be displayed in it. So data grid view, the data section, and now click this little right arrowy, and we're going to do data source, down arrow, add project data source. So data grid view, data source currently has no data source. This is where we're creating this connection to a database. Because we added those extra features to Studio, now this isn't blank like it was at first. And I'm scratching my head wondering what went wrong. And I realized the book doesn't tell you you had to add those extra features to the IDE. It just says, hey, you're going to see this. And I wasn't. So I figured that out for you. So it's a database. I'm getting my database, my information from a database. But notice I can choose other places to get my data, like from an online service. Again, this is way more powerful than just opening a file. I can actually get data from a live service. But we're going to go database, and I click next. And it's a data set, next. And now I can browse to a connection to my database. All databases, even though this is a local file, we treat that as a connection to a database. So I click New Connection, and it's going to be a SQL Server database file.
Wait, I'm lost how, which
Okay, the control part?
which control is it?
Yeah, data grid view, yep.
Okay.
Yep, and there, data source.
Oh yeah.
There you go. And so you're getting down to the point where it's a SQL Server file.
I don't have.
Yeah, the next, yeah. And there, new connection. Yeah, nothing will show up there until we click that. So you got the new connection file, and then we browse to that file that you downloaded, the company.mdf. And I click continue. Server database file, continue. Browse to that company.mdf file that I downloaded over here and stored it over here on the new volume, A.T. Manning, this one, VB project, .NET framework. Is that the one? Yeah. There's the company.mdf. Double click. And now this is a local file, and I can do a test connection just for fun, see what happens. And, oh, I can't do the test connection because I need to click OK, because that is an older version. I need to do the upgrade right now. So this is an older file, and that's another thing you deal with when you're working with something more powerful. You'll be dealing with the version from 5 years ago for someone that created an application 5 years ago. And because of security and software bug fixes, connecting to something more complex is going to introduce longer term support issues. As you work with other things, those other things may be fixed and they have new versions that are available to you, and the old version may go away. So another thing you have to worry about when you're doing fancier things is, what version was I using when I built this? Now we see here that I have a connection to just a local file. Click here so you can see what this data connection string looks like. This is the key to how your program will actually connect to a database. And look at all those parameters. There's a source, a type of a file, a type of connection, the path to a file name. Notice the path is an absolute path. So if you ever decide to move that file around, your program will probably break. So, but notice the absolute path is a path in my project. And if I click next, it also gives me the option of putting that file in my current project. Yes, I want to do that because I'm going to be storing my project, zipping it all up, and sending it to someone else, like on Schoology. So we want to pack all our information up into our project. Now, databases that are out there online would have a different connection string. And when you ran your project, you would have to make sure that that database out there on the internet, the connection string is still valid. But this data source connection string, it could be referring to a link out on the internet, and this would be a URL or an IP address to a database server anywhere on the internet. That's how powerful databases are. It could be that Google has a database that if you learned or you paid someone for access to it, you would have a connection string to their database. And then we can do the same database things that we're doing with this local file. So I'm going to click yes, copy it into my project, and go ahead, save the connection string. That makes sense, even though we're not doing anything with our connection string. I click next, and now I have to decide. Now I see that it does see a database, and I'm not expecting you to remember all the things you did in databases, but mainly the main thing in databases, they're full of tables. That's their base data. And let's choose I think we're choosing the employees table. And now I click finish, and we can come back to there and add different things just for fun. Basically, we're saying we're connecting to the employees table. I can even expand that and show that I only want specific columns from the employees table. I'm going to click finish. And now, all that's left to do, I can close this guy. I don't need to see that anymore. I can now run my program and see what shows up in that window. Click Start. And my program is up over here. And lo and behold, I have a reference to data in that table, that little mini database. Now, in a fancier database, you would have perhaps a fancier view of this. I can sort by last name or first name. You can even try to change the data. Let's change Orville's first name to Orville 3 E's. Orville E. That little pencil shows that that's been edited. I don't know if there's a way, if it's saved. It doesn't say whether or not I've changed the data. Let's close the program and restart and see if Orville's name has stuck in the database. I run it again, makes a connection, and I see that Orville's name didn't remain changed. So how to make the data save permanent? That's a little extra thing that you have to actually figure out with permissions or settings. Can I actually make permanent changes to that database? We're not worried about that for now. We just want to see how we can make that connection. I'm going to close, and I'm going to make a connection to another table. This is my employee table. Let's do that same thing again now with another data grid view. I'm going to drag that over here. Oh, I guess I have to click and draw it, and I can't drag it over. This time, I want a different data source. So I'm going to come over here and choose another data source, because right now it's connecting to the employees. Let's see what shows up here. Does this, let's see if that shows. Oh, I might actually, oh, it only shows the employees right now. I want to connect to one of those other tables. I think I have to add another project data source, because this one is only bound to the employees table. So let's go through that step again. Add a project data source, database, do the same thing, and I think all I have to do is go to the same file. I'd like to see that string just for fun. Make a new connection, browse to the same file, and then click OK. And now convert. We'll use the existing one. There we go. Now I can convert and use the, let's try the sales table this time, which will be this data set. So I have data set 1 now, and I click finish. And now let's run the program. And each data grid now is displaying data from different data sets in that table. And as we dock this in different ways, we can see the different data, pieces of data. All through a local connection, but a connection across the internet would look very similar. I simply established that data's connection to something on the internet instead of the local source. So I can add multiple data sources to my file. I'm going to do something. I'm going to actually make another data source that's the entire database. See if I can get one, and then I don't have to make a new connection. I can just choose different data sets. See how this data set only has that in it? I think I could have a data set that has all the tables. Let's see if I can do that. So I'm going to make another grid and close that one. Actually, close properties. Let's add another data grid. Data grid view. Click and draw. Click and draw. Oh, what's going on? It's not letting me draw another one. There we go. I don't know what's going on there. Go through that one last time. This time I'm going to do all the tables and see what that connection will look like. Data source. Another data source. Database. Data set. New connection. Browse to that same file. Okay. I'd like to see my connection string. And now I'm going to choose the pieces. Oh yeah, I have to convert it again. I don't know why it reads me through that. Now, basically, what if I just choose all the tables? I don't have any views. Let's see what that data set. And I'm going to give that a name. I'll call that data set all tables. It looks like. Go ahead.
It's saying my file doesn't exist. And
Weird. And look at that. It does not, because I added all files to that data set, it looks like I have to go back here and there, all file tables. There, now I have to choose one of those tables. Now I don't have to keep adding a new data source. I added all the tables, and now I can go to that data set and choose, oh, I want to see this time the sales staff data. If I want something different, I can now go here and go to my data sources and departments, and the department table will show up in that data grid. So by adding all the tables to my data set, I don't have to keep making a new connection. I should have done that the first time. See how I can choose one of the tables to be my data set for that grid. Now let's take a look now. Let's go ahead and run this, make sure I haven't broke anything. navigate through the data. I lost my scroll bar. They feel a little, oh, I have a little spin thing here. So if I make it too skinny, too short, I don't get a scroll bar, I just get an up and down arrow. Not many sales apparently. And let's see our department IDs. I can go through all of my departments, and I only have a few departments, 1 and 2. Lots of employees. If I stretch my window, they don't stretch with me. Let's see if we can get that stretching to work a little better. And I think I know how to do that. And then we'll see what else we can do with these data sets. And take a look at the code that actually connects us. So on each of these data sets, I'm going to select them and open up their properties, right-click properties. And down here in the docking behavior of that little data set, I'm looking for docking behavior. Where's the docking? There it is, dock. I can choose the docking to be left, right, or center, or top, or none. I'm going to go top. Let's try, oh, I wonder if I selected the wrong thing. Let's choose that one to be docking of, how about middle? And this one, let's choose docking of bottom. It's really strange looking here, but let's see if it runs, if it looks any better. Oh, it looks horrible. But I think if I stretch the window, it moves with my window. So the docking is a little crazy, but the docking lets it resize as I resize my window. But it's really bad behavior. I can go undo the docking of each of those. Let's see if I can undo that. Let's make docking none and see if it goes back to its normal place. Ooh, that's ugliness. So messing with the docking, oh, really? Let's see if I can, I don't know if I can Control Z back to where I was. Let's see. Oh, that's a little better. So Control Z does let me get to this. That's a little more sensible. But to actually have it stretch with your window, in the book they only had one data grid in the window, and they did a docking, I think a docking of full. You can toggle through and see, yeah, they did a docking of fill. But look at that, if you mess with your docking, it messes up your window. That's Control Z back to. So I guess the lesson here is don't mess with the docking unless you only have, I'm guessing it's because there's multiple grids in one window that it doesn't know how to dock when there's other ones there. Alright, so what we've done so far now, we have added the data grid and just modified the properties of that data grid here in the data source. And I'll bet you it's over here in the properties as well. Data grid, oh, it looks like data grid properties doesn't let me see that. I have to come up here to see the data source for that data grid. So there, if I click on that, notice the properties here, nothing much there. I just have this, and ooh, that looks pretty ugly, all that shows up there. Oh, this is how I can choose what objects are in my these are the objects that are in my project. And let's just choose for one of those binding sources. This is all those connections between your application and your database that is being done for you when you go to these properties. But look at these things that got added. I still have my Form 1, but all these others, I've got table adapters, I've got grid views, I've got binding source. Don't worry about all of that. This is all managed for you when you just connected a grid to a data source. So lots of complicated things come in with connecting to a database. But let's run it and make sure that I can see the data. And now let's see what else I can do with that data. Now that I know how to display it in a data grid and I can explore the data, I've learned that if I make changes to it, they're not sticking. That might be something I might want to figure out. How can I actually edit the data? It appears I have like an Excel spreadsheet type behavior, and I can even add a record to the table. But to have this data stay in the database now, that would be my next challenge. I'm going to bring up the textbook and see what else they have us do with databases, just so you build up some familiarity here. Again, I'm not expecting you to be a database expert, but to know there's this thing called a connection that I have to establish in order to access the database information. And I'll bring up the little they gave me a little diagram too about databases. Here's the diagrams I was referring to, where you have a database, you have your Visual Basic application, you're connecting to a database management system, and then you finally get at the data in that system. Now, this has multiple ways of connecting. We've connected with probably the simplest way, connected to a local database file. To connect to an actual database, you have to go through a lot of other hoops here in order to be able to connect to the data that you want to simply display. So right now we're simply displaying the data in a data grid object, but we'd like to do something fancier with that, and let's see what else we can do. Now that we've connected, successfully tested our connection, we've made our first milestone that we can connect to the data and display it using the data grid view control. And here's another diagram I found pretty helpful. We have our application. There's this thing called a binding source, and then the data set, and then a table adapter, and then a data source. You don't have to worry about anything except, hey, there's multiple levels of software that gets me to the data. And depending on what version of database you're connecting with, you may have to add or install other software that would let you work with that type of data source. So now what we'd like to do is actually connect to the data and do a little bit more than display it in a window. So right now we have it displayed in a window, and they're displaying their sales staff. That looks a little more interesting. Their sales staff is a much larger table, and that's one table I'm missing. So I'm going to add sales staff, and let's see. Maybe I'm just going to change the data source for one. I'm going to make these two small ones. Enlarge this one, and I'm going to change my data source to be other data source, project data source, all tables, sales staff. And now I can run. So I just changed his data source to be the sales staff in that connection already established. And now when I run my program, the sales staff doesn't enlarge, but I can scroll through all the sales staff. If I want to see more, I have to enlarge my form and enlarge my data grid. Let's see if I can control minus. I can't control minus to reduce my font. It'd be nice if it had that kind of behavior. So I am viewing the data in a table. So far, even though it lets me change the data, it's not in reality writing it to the database. That would be another thing I'd have to figure out, how to actually make the change permanent. And just by clicking on the column, you can see that you can sort the information based on that column. I'm going to delete these other ones and just display the sales staff table and change that to be docked full and see how that behaves. Change the dock to, I guess I can toggle through fill, dock fill. Changing the dock to fill makes some weird effects here. I'm not sure why I get those weird effects. I'll bet you I'm going to close that and reopen it and see if those effects, strange effects, go away. Yeah, the weird effects went away. If I just close the design view and reopen it, now let's run it with full for docking type. Where'd my docking go? Somewhere there was the docking. The docking is set to full. And now when I run my program, oh, I have to have it selected, of course. And the docking is full now. There, dock or fill. Now when I run it, now when I view the data, as I stretch my window, I can view more of the table. A little better behavior because of the docking property.
Get the higher date full time. Is that where you
And if I want to sort it, because of the way these are built, if I just click on the column, it sorts it by that field.
don't have those columns.
This is the staff table. Now you won't see it if you don't have it, or if you haven't enlarged it horizontally. Nice thing about this, because it's docked fill, as I enlarge my window, it shows me the rest of the data. So that those columns are there. It's just you can't see them because your data grid view. And I'd say it's kind of clunky how you can, you can't stretch to fill it. You don't have scroll left and right.
It's like there's only two columns.
Yeah.
But no, in my database.
It's actually not only seeing the two columns?
It's only saying first name and last name.
Huh. In what table?
And the staff. And the one you have.
Sales staff. Interesting. Well, oh, I had the data grid selected here in design view, and in the properties I changed the dock here to be fill. And let's see if does it show what that is. I guess that's the middle one in the little graphic there.
Yeah. Did you just do one of them?
I picked the middle one, and that's the one. Or you can click on them and toggle through. And I guess the strange behavior over here goes away, or it's not taking effect. Let's see if I save it. Let's see what happens if it restructures. It's Control S save. I guess if I close it and reopen design view, then I get an idea of what's happening. Now just for fun here, let's take a look at what our code looks like. Even though we haven't had to worry about the code they're generating, let's take a look in my code that comes in my project that it's building for me. Down somewhere in here, not form 1. Let's try maybe references. Ooh, it may not be. Oh, it may not be a VB file anymore. It may be hidden in these references. I thought I would see part of. Let's try form 1. That's the code. Let's try right-click view. Oh, what do I have here? Let's see. I'm looking for form 1. There's all the parts of form 1. I thought I wanted to see my code. I guess I have to double click on my form. I thought I could right click view code. Let's go down to form 1. Let's try right click. There, right click view code. Let's see what we have in here. This is the code that was generated when we did add those data connections. I think. No. They added this data table adapter for you. connecting to multiple data sets, and then you see the names that I connected to. And all I have here is a, what do we have? We have a departments table adapter gets filled with that information. So that's what's happening. When my form loads, this little code has been put in there for me, and basically it says fill this table adapter with the data from the departments table. This fills it from the sales staff table, and this fills it from the sales table and the employees table. In my actual code of my program, I have the placement of those configured over there in some of those other project files. Somewhere here it determines the placement of everything. So your project, when you create a project, it's not just one little file of VB code. It's the associated configuration of your project, like where things go on the screen. And I'm going to close that and reopen the designer, and then it comes back with a better view. So changing the docking, and I don't know if that will happen to you, but that's a little buggy in the user interface. And maybe because of my display resolution, did warn that, hey, you've got goofy resolution that's not working, or don't expect to work it as well. So in the book, they get you this far and just show you here you can view the data. Now, Eli, did you ever get to view the full table yet?
I don't have, like, I've done different data.
Really? Let's take a look.
I don't know. I think like this is all I have for
So that's your
employees.
staff. Yeah, employees.
This is staff.
Oh, okay.
Sales staff.
So why is your sales staff? Let's take a look at your data connection property there. Yeah, other. Yeah. I haven't played with all those parts, so it may be the choice of those other parts. We don't want to add another connection. I would do other, project data sources,
Yeah.
and then choose the sales staff.
Yeah, but that just creates another binding source.
Actually, it replaces the little one that has.
Yeah. Which now I'm on my second phone. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay. Now, if you actually go online and look for Visual Basic Connect to Database, your first question is going to be well, what kind of database are you connecting to? What's that? The product, yeah. Well, there's staff and then there's sales staff. How's yours working? Okay, yeah, there you go. So you set the docking to full, and then it shows you the full page. But that's only if you, remember that in your database you have multiple tables. Now, let's see what else we can do with that data, now that we know how to connect to it. And remember, we're only doing a simple application where we're connecting to a local file. And in our Solution Explorer here, something I also was looking through, in my Solution Explorer, there is my company.mdf file that I've made part of my project. I'm going to right-click on that and choose Properties. And let's see what properties are associated with that file. Notice that shows the path to that file. And I also want to see here, the copy to output directory. They give you a warning when you connect it. Do I want to copy to output directory every time I run the program? I turn this off hoping that I could actually make changes to the data that would stick. Let's see what happens. So I changed company MDF, property of copy to output directory, change that to do not copy. Now what is this here? The build action, I don't want to mess with build action, I guess. Custom tool, I don't even know what that means. But let's see what happens if I do the do not copy. Let's see if any of my changes will stick. So I change that to do not copy, run the program, and where's my program go? Did it break? Continue. Oh, I've got some, how did I get an exception? Maybe I can't change it to do not copy. I guess I'll change that back to copy always. Let's see what happens. How could I didn't expect to break my program. Oh, look at that. Okay, it works fine now that I left it to copy always. I actually did this same thing on another app, and it didn't do this to me. Try that now. I'm going to go back and change it to do not copy and see if I get that error again. Do not copy, start. I get an error if I do the do not copy. Alright, ignore the do not copy thing then.
What? Can you go, can you just run the form? Or if it works.
Yeah, I'll turn off do not copy.
I want to see if even my names are the same.
Okay, so I'm going to do start. Here's what I get. I reduce it just to one table grid.
I don't even have the same. Oh, never mind. Last the first name. Sorry.
And then it goes all the way. I think salary is the last column. Yeah. Now let's go back. Let's just do a little exploring here. I'm going to close my program.
I only have the first name and last name.
I'm going to go design view. Let's take a look at my data grid. And the little arrow property. This is annoying that I have to find it here and not over in the properties of my data grid. Let's see if I can edit columns. See what that does. If I edit columns, I guess looks like I can choose what columns order they go. If I choose here and I choose what my data source is, I can choose edit columns there as well. It does say enable adding editing, but I'm not sure if the actual data is actually being edited. Let's see if I can, oh look, I could choose to undock and parent. That might be interesting.
Oh, I found out. It does have it.
Data source.
I've got to add the columns, man.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe somehow it got messed up that it didn't know to use all your columns. So this is something that you basically, as we're learning the connection to databases, using this data source technique, here's how I can mess with what it's connecting to. In my other data sources, I can connect to different tables. And it looks like it wants to only select a table. I can't select the entire data set or it won't be happy. And what do they say there? It creates an instance on the form and binds it through something. So basically you can think of this as a lot of work being done for you when you create this and create this settings that you are telling the data grid, here's where to go read your data and do it all for me when I run the program. With that data grid and this property set up, it fills with that data. And it has the sorting capabilities already built in. Choose a column and it sorts on that column. But I'd like to be able to do more than just simply display all the data. What if I could modify the data from inside my program? And if I want to clean this up, I think I could clean up my form. I only care so right now. I know I've deleted those other forms. It looks like if you delete one of the data grids, it still remembers in the code that it was connecting to these other data sets. So I added lots of data sets, but really I realized I'm only using this one now, and I'm only using the sales staff. Let's see if I comment out these others. I think I don't need those connections because I've deleted those table adapters. Let's see if it breaks because I've deleted the ones I no longer use. Yeah, it's happy. Yeah. You see the data. Let's see what happens if I remove this line. Fill the table adapter. I am guessing that I'm going to get a blank table, but it'll still show up. Let's see what I get. No exception. Yep. I just get this. If I haven't filled the table, I have this. My table adapter does not have data in it. So I am seeing that thing up on the screen is apparently a sales staff table adapter created for me. And let's see if I go back to design view, I click on that guy and I see, what is he called over here? He is a data grid view 3. So no, he's not a, somehow he's associated with a table adapter. So plenty of complex things in there as soon as we get to our table. And look at the properties. I can see, let me stretch this out, I can see in the properties of that particular thing that his binding source, there's the sales staff binding source 2. He's got a name, data grid view 3. What else do I see that is specific? I guess it's the data bindings that are interesting. I was expecting something called a data adapter. I bet you there's a data adapter in there somewhere because he's associated somehow with that data set. There's the data source. What happens if I click on that? Oh, look at that. It can take me to that same property. Oh, so it looks like I don't have to go through that little right arrowy thingy. I can go to the data source property instead of going up through this tiny little, almost invisible little arrow right there. The properties of my data grid in the data source lets me to determine where that data is coming from. Now, one challenge that I'm thinking of is give myself a challenge. Could I add a data source that actually connects to a database that I have out on the internet? And I could even create a MySQL database or a Microsoft database and just see, could I connect to something completely separate from my PC? I think I can, but let's see what else I can do with this data source. I have it up on the displaying in my program. In the tutorial they give us, they add a new data source and they show it on another form. So it looks like I can go to my data sources in my Solution Explorer. They show us this in the company data set. Where's my company data set? Do I see it? There's my company data set. If I click on a data set, I'm supposed to be able to drag. What if I double click? There. Oh, look at that. If I double click on that, I see my various tables and their associations with the other tables. Ooh, I haven't seen this before.
I wonder if we could plot a linear regression of how old a person is and how high their salary is.
Yeah, there it is. do a little calculation. They haven't showed us yet how to actually programmatically view the data. To me, that'd be much more interesting. You know, displaying it using controls. That shows me, okay, I'm connected to the data set. They show that I can go to my data sources window. I'm looking for my data sources window. Am I missing a window? Let's see here. Do a view. Is there a data sources window? Other windows. Do I have a data sources window? Data tools operations. Oh, here's a data sources window. Oh, look at that. If I open the data sources window, there I can see my data in all its data sets that I have connected to. And let's see what happens if I just drag, let's see, I can go to my form and adjust him, or maybe adjust my form. Let's change the fill of him, the docking. Where's the docking? There. I'm going to change the docking to none again. And then go to my data sources. Where did my data sources window go? Data sources. And drag one of those data sets to my form. Let's see what happens. My departments table, drag from the data source view to my form, and I'm guessing it's going to put a grid there, but it doesn't look like anything happened. I'm thinking I'm going to close my design and bring it open. I think the design view is a little buggy. Now it won't open. I can't open my design view anymore. Designer. There, finally showed it. Whew, thought for a minute I broke it. Now let's try that again. Let's see if I can drag a data set of departments. According to the book, that was supposed to work. Well, I guess I can't just drag it in. Sorry, it didn't work the same as what they're showing in the textbook there. Maybe I have to go down a level? No, they dragged the whole thing in and it became a new grid. Let's see what happens if I drag just pieces of a table onto my grid. Let's see what happens there. My designer isn't working the way it's supposed to. I was supposed to get actually a little form with each little item showing up. I'm thinking I'm going to start over because I've messed this one up enough just to get practice at data connection. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one and start a new one just to make sure I know how this all works. Okay, start Studio. New project. It's a Windows, it's a Visual Basic, Windows, not a WPF, a Windows Form app. And click the hidden next button. I'll call it Windows Form app, WinForm app 2. .net, and it's a framework. Manning DB version 2. This time I'm going to go add the data set. I guess I can't add it. Let's see. Project, where's the view? The data sets. The view. Where's my data set? Other windows. Data sources. Add a data source, database, connection. Now the file is that same file I was using before. I'm going to bring it into this project, and I believe it's already been converted, so I think I can do a test connection, and it's happy. It doesn't worry about its version because it has already converted it to a newer version. My connection string is still that file, but I'm going to now bring it into my project and save the string. Now I'm going to select all the tables for my data set, and I'm going to call this company data set all tables. Now let's see what happens. I expand my data source I just added, and I'm going to just drag the departments over. Let's see if it works like I was expecting. Ooh, it's not dragging it in. Let's click on it and click. No, arc. Add new data source. No, I guess I can't drag it in. Although it makes it look like I should be able to. I guess I still have to drag in a data grid control, data grid view, click and draw. And I'm going to go here in my data source, my project data source I've already brought in, and there I can choose what table. So this is the cleaner way. I like this way better, rather than bringing a data grid and choosing data source. I like the idea of knowing that my data sources are valid for my entire project, not just for that little data grid. And the docking of the data grid, I'll go ahead and go what's that?
Can you show me one last time how to access the data sources?
How to get that in here?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I had nothing here, and let's see what happens if I delete that. Re-add it. Let's see if I can delete that. Let's say right-click. Oh, it doesn't let me delete that data source. Let's just say I'm going to add a new data source. I have nothing here. I would click Add a new data source, and it's a database. It's a data set. I'm making a connection to the data set, and it remembers from my last time. I want to be sure I'm choosing a SQL Server database file. These other types of connections, these are what let you actually connect to a server out on the internet. Actually, these two. I'm going to play with this. I know I connect to a regular Access file. Apparently, this is database file is different than an Access database file. Ooh, look, I could connect to Oracle. I could actually add other connectors for other database providers. But in this case, I'm only using the file. And okay, and browse then to the file that contains that type of data. And ignore the authentication part. Click. And next. And yes, bring it into my project. Yeah, I'll go ahead and overwrite it. And I select all the tables that are in it. And now I have two data sets. And apparently you can't delete data sets once you have them. Ooh, I can preview the data. Let's see what that does. Ooh, that lets me explore what's in there. That's interesting. Not terribly useful. The preview doesn't give me much. Maybe I have to click on it and then click preview. No. Click on that. Preview. No. Oh, there I see a preview now for that one down here. So lots of things I can play with in the IDE. But I would like to do something more. Let's see if there's something more we can do. They dragged a data set and got something pretty cool to show up, but it doesn't work for me. Data sources, data set, sales staff. They dragged the sales staff onto the form and got a cool form to show up. Let me do a click a start and see if anything shows up. nothing's showing up when I'm running my program. I think I just crashed something. So I guess a lesson here is it's a little unstable. It says it's running, but well, the start is now grayed out. Oh, Visual Studio is still thinking about what it is. I have a feeling I just crashed Studio. I'm getting this I'm thinking message from Visual Studio, and I don't think it has to do with scaling, but Visual Studio is locked up on me because I tried to drag a data source in and see what showed up. I'm going to go to my task manager and kill that process. Which process would it be? Studio. There's multiple processes running. Uh-oh. Which process is the Visual Studio process I need to kill? Which one is the busiest? None of these are very busy. I wonder, is he stuck trying to build? I didn't realize there are so many processes running when you're running Visual Studio. And I don't see my program yet. I could kill Visual Studio, I suppose. It looks like it's hung up just trying to run that. Oh, here we go. No. Okay, so it didn't like that, whatever I did there. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to run again. Let's try the data grid view. See if it'll let me place it there. Choose the data source. And run. No. I've messed it up somehow by trying to click and drag data sources into my form. I'd say there's a feels to me like there's a bug going on in Visual Studio and dealing with data sources. I'm going to close and check for updates because I don't think I did an update on this one. Let's see. I'm gonna kill Visual Studio. Can I kill that app? End task. And I'm going to check for updates for Visual Studio before I run it again. Next time we'll see if we can complete what's supposed to be fairly simple interface to that database. And I'll go through it first to make sure I find out what's actually broken in our version. And maybe, just maybe, we'll connect to a database on the internet if I can provide one for you.
Thank you.
SQL Server out on the network.
Thank you.
You're welcome.